Welcome to Good Times RVing. Today let's talk about trip planning, specifically fuel stops. First, I use Pilot Flying J preferably. I have their fuel card for a little bit of a discount, but more importantly I can pay at the pump up to $500. And for trip planning, I use Good Sam. It works very well for me. The Good Sam software works with my Rand McNally GPS. I'm able to download the trips into the GPS and have all the coordinates and information. Just to give a little background here, on my RV, the gas fill is well towards the back. It's about 3 feet or so behind the drive axle, which is the pivot point on my rig, of course, and on any rig. Drive axle is a pivot point. Anything in front of that drive will go in the way you're steering. Anything behind the drive wheels, of course, go in the opposite way of steering. So you have to watch for clearances, especially in tight fuel aisles. Just to give you an idea of some of the dynamics, when I pull out a rig, you'll notice how close we are to the pad here, the edge of the pad. Now watch when I turn. I have to pull well out into the travel lane of the campground here. And here I'm going to slow it down some. When I start to turn, watch what happens with my dolly. It moves well in the opposite direction, about 4 feet. Now that actually can be very useful to clear items. I've used that technique. However, you have to watch the far side, and you'll notice here it does come about a foot or so inside the radius of the drive wheel when you're turning. That depends, of course, on how sharp you have to turn. But these are the dynamics you're dealing with when you're in tight spaces. Fuel stops here. We're heading to Kentucky. Here we're near our stop at Glendale, Kentucky. Looked it up on the internet. I got the address, the street address. Sometimes you only get coordinates, but you can use those from Google Maps or the Google Earth. But here it is. Now notice up in the upper left, that's a truck stop. But what we want is the travel center. So here's the travel center. Because the travel centers, in my instance, I need gasoline. Travel centers have gasoline. Here's the entrance. Big parking lot to make your decisions. You can pull in there and eye the facility and make sure there's no obstructions. You can either go straight ahead and out the truck stop or turn and go under the canopy, which is my preference. Under the canopy, past the parked cars, and then turn to this end fuel aisle and face the exit. And always is my preference is to face the exit. And that way I have a straight shot out. I have to manage that toad so that I can get them past the fuel aisles and get out. But this leaves the passenger side clear. Well, in theory, it's clear. When you get to the fuel stop, you'll want to check to make sure that there's no obstructions. Delivery trucks, parked rigs, etc. Here we go. This is live. Notice that truck is going left. He's going to the truck stop. Now, we will go right. And as soon as I make that turn, actually before I make that turn, I'm eyeing to make sure that this looks like the Google Earth image. And here, you get an obstruction. You don't worry about it. You've got a plan. You're looking for something familiar. Pull up, eyeing the fuel stop, making sure it looks like what I expect it to look like, but also that there's no obstructions. There's no fuel trucks dropping their load, there's no delivery trucks, there's no broken down vehicles, there's no gas pumps without fuel. I've done that, worked very hard to get into a gas aisle only to find that there's no fuel. So you want to eye all those things. And here, you want to watch people. There's lots of people moving around here. On the right there, the woman with a dog. Here's a kid with their back facing you. Lots of moving pieces here. and I want to go to the far end because that's where my exit is. If I need to leave this space for whatever reason, I can't get in, or there's any reason I need to leave, I need an exit plan. So if here I've stopped eyeing the fuel aisles just to make sure that I can basically, quote, execute my plan. So here, we're moving up here, eyeing the exit, and there's my exit coming here. If things go wrong or I need to abort the mission here, so to speak, just go straight. Straight, make a right, and you're back on the highway. So here, still making sure. I think at this point I'm slowing down, and actually I edited out. I stopped here and I waited for some traffic to clear, waiting for the pumps to clear so that I can go to my preferred pump. And the one thing, my head is always on a swivel here, and I move very slowly because people, as big as I am, people are completely oblivious to this big moving vehicle. Here a woman literally walks out in front of me. I don't know that she ever saw me. And the person backing out, there's no rush here. Let people back out of their spots, let them clear. In my rig, I can't back up. Well, I won't say can't, but it's very limited, my options when I back up, and it causes issues. Here, so I'm pulling ahead. I want to get my drives past the fuel aisle. Get the drive wheels past the fuel aisle, and then I'll turn it in. And the reason I do that is because I want to get the toad clear of the fuel aisle. And here you'll see, if you look at the pad, I'm well away from the pumps at this point. And that's all to get that, it's all to get that toad clear of the fuel aisle. And now I can pull ahead. The toad is now lining up behind the rig, off the fuel aisle. And if you remember, that gas fill is well to the back, so I'm going to have to pull ahead here good distance to get to an appropriate spot so that get the nozzle to the fuel fill. But okay, so now we've filled up, we're full, we pull straight ahead, and once the toad is clear of the fuel aisle, I can make my right. Because you remember that car will step over a number of feet depending on how sharp the turn is. So you want to make sure the car is clear of the fuel aisle before you make your right turn. And very wide turn to clear the curb, and straight ahead. And the entrance ramp to the interstate, here's right here on the right. In my opinion, this is a textbook fuel stop. Everything worked according to plan, no issues. And let me show you now some of the things that go wrong when you don't plan. Now this was a successful fuel stop, don't get me wrong, but there was unnecessary stress because we didn't plan. This day we were heading down I-77 in North Carolina, saw a pilot station being advertised on the side of the road, and decided, well, let's stop early. The cat was unhappy, we wanted to stop, just stretch our legs a little bit. So we know the fuel station's down here somewhere. We don't know what side of the road. And we've seen signs for a lot of other brands, but my focus is typically Pilot. So at this point, I'm scanning the horizon, looking for the Pilot sign. I locate it there on the left, so I need to get in the left lane for the left turn. You see on the right here is the Shell station. That Shell station has acres of parking lot, which without planning, I didn't know. I am focused on the Pilot because I have the card. It's just easier for me. Actually, I should have stopped a little bit farther back, eyed the Shell station. It would have been a better choice. You'll note that this is not a Pilot branded fuel at the gas station, which means they don't follow the Pilot company policies in spacing etc., you'll have a non-standard gas station. Could be terrific, and in this instance, it was a bit tight. Now I could go in here, go in straight, or I could go back around and come out through the center. Plan is to come out and face the exit. I could pull in there, but then look at all these barriers that I would have had to deal with leaving that spot. So I'm going to deal with the barriers on the initially, come out close here, and I'm going to try to get as straight as I can when I get to the fuel pumps so the toad clears the fuel aisle. Here we had an issue with that center aisle with a car coming in, so I went to plan B and went to the side aisle here near the building. Not my preference. There's just too many obstructions, and you'll notice here the building starts to pinch that passenger side, which is so important to me. But we have lots of space ahead and lots of ability to go straight out, which is, in my instance, important. But here are some of the obstructions I was looking at. That's lower than the top of my coach. So if I get too close to that with the front, I'll nick it. But if I turn too sharply, I run the chance of the rear coming around and catching that. And in fact, that whole cantilevered roof is lower than the top of my coach. So I have to be very careful. And that is out of my mirror. So I just need to be very careful about that. Also, this obstruction. Once you're past it, that disappears and gets into your blind spot and could cause a problem. You have to remember those kind of obstructions are there. But we were successful, and I got to look at, now I'm become very much aware of that Shell station with all that parking lot. Would have been a much better choice had I just done a little research. Now look at this. This is the pilot station on the right. When I pull off the exit this night, that's the one I saw. So in my mind, I'm mentally calculating. I never saw this pilot station. Would have been a much better choice. A little planning would have told me, go straight. But we were tired. It was the end of a long day. I violated a number of my don't do's here. It was getting dark, end of a long day. I was having mechanicals, so I had lots of distractions. I had mechanical issues. And of course the question came, what are you doing? Where are you going? I said, well, this well-lit pilot station is where I'm going. I mean, it looks like the aisles are wide enough with no issues. Well, what I didn't see, I wasn't aware of, was that white pickup truck. That is the obstruction. This should have been a textbook stop, but that obstruction really pinched my approach. And it was very difficult here to get in. Was I successful? Yeah. Lots of unnecessary stress. And typically when the hat comes off, it's an issue. And there it goes. A little bit of frustration. Trying to figure out the angles, but I didn't push it. We stopped, eyed everything, checked the toad, checked the angles. Can I make it in here? Yes. Will it be easy? Not really. But Gail was kind enough to get out and guide me. I turned it up here, turned the speed up a fair amount, so we just to get through this. The fellow in the pickup truck, you'll see, was anxious to get out of my way, but he left his fuel cap open. I felt bad about that. It got him so distracted. He wanted to just get out of the way, and we checking the toad. Yeah, we got it. Toad, it's okay. Up, get it that way. Yep, we're good. And notice the trucks. There's a constant flow of trucks here coming past us in the front. But were we able to make it? Yeah. Was there lots of stress? Yes. Lack of planning, not a good thing. And we also paid a lot for fuel there. But you'll notice that once we get settled, it becomes I become very much aware that we should have, and you notice here we're having to still pull forward to get that fuel nozzle close enough to to the rig to get filled. This night we took about 69 gallons. We were low. And of course I became very much aware that I should have went to that pilot and not this one. Now the fuel aisles, the RV fuel aisles at pilots are good, but they are narrow aisles. You need to approach them, at least with my rig, very straight. They give you lots of room typically to do that. So what I do is I use all that real estate, and I look here. There's no pumps on this side. The gas pumps are there. Diesel pumps are there. So I need to get in that center aisle. So I give myself lots of room, and I want to angle around. Here I go well past, and then I angle in, and have lots of room to go straight. I want to avoid those barriers and avoid that curb and those pumps with the Toad. So I want to line up in the center, give myself as much room on either side as I can, and have the Toad straight behind me when I pull through here. And then there's lots of room in the front to exit, not an issue. And also on the RV lanes, there's only typically regular fuel. My preference is premium because I'm towing. Here we are. This is our typical stop, end of the trip. This is about 20 miles from storage. Here, these fuel aisles are angled at about 45 degrees. They're very easy to get into. There's lots of room in this station, though there are a few things to watch for. Again, I'm very familiar with the station, but I'm still looking for obstructions. Obstructions will cause you a lot of stress. Here, that trucker is very nice to get over because he knows I got to hug that dull yellow line there. I know he's going left. I'll watch that curb. So I'll need to go into the opposite lane, travel here, the opposite travel lane. He was very kind to give me space to get that Toad past that curb. Here an RV is stopped. They've got a customer in front of them. It's a short tiffin, about 35 feet. So there's room here. You can get around to them on the right. There's space. And it does not block the travel lane. If I tried to do that, the Toad would be in the way. You couldn't get by me on the right because the Toad would be in the way, and you couldn't proceed straight. You'd have to go into the opposite travel lane. So I try not to do that. I find that to be very rude. Now the spot that I had initially picked on the way in is now full. So I'm eyeing who's almost done fueling and where can I, inconvenience the least number of people. Chose here. This woman was almost done. There was no one on the right of me at the fuel lane, and the rest of the fuel station is not obstructed by my rig. Here, Gail will guide me in and pull me forward because I have to pull forward a fair distance, about 35 feet from the pump, to get access. Here we're done. Pull out. I'm a very slow mover in a fuel station. I don't go quickly, and I keep my head on a swivel because people do the most unexpected things. I've had people do very odd things and, quite honestly, very dangerous things near my rig. I just want to take my time, make sure I'm aware of everything that's going on here. On my way out, I'll make a very wide turn here. Use the space available to you. There's no reason to pull in tight to anything unless you absolutely have to. On the way out, I try to get my rig as straight as possible. Again, always keeping that Toad in mind as I move through here. This is a nice wide open space, no obstructions. But on the way out, I'll stay in the center here because I know this station. Stay in the center of the lane, near the center, because I'm looking at this curb here. You'll notice that curb right there. I don't want to hit that with the Toad. If I get too close to it, and because I have to turn left hard here, if I get too close to it with the Toad, I could possibly hit that curb. So I stay toward the center of the lane. Of course, I let the trucks clear, let the traffic clear. I'm going to make a nice hard left turn here to get in the left turn lane. Hopefully that was useful. Give you some examples of fuel stations and what to try not to do on some of them. Thanks so much.